That's pretty thick.
Yeah.
Holy moly. Travel bucket list. I don't
there's
know.
a
I
good chunk in the back.
Italy.
Yeah.
Mom was going
I
to
did
Italy.
traveling.
Oh, you did
Yeah,
Washington,
the bucket list is
right?
where you wanted to go. Not where you went.
Yeah.
Bucket list would be like what I would have liked to have gone. All right.
Oh, no, because it's, this is, then there's a travel. The travel and then bucket list.
I went to Branson several times. I was to Europe. Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Utah.
If you happen to look at this,
A few years ago.
What?
I was out at Utah.
Oh, I thought you said Egypt at first.
so
Colorado. Yeah.
let's talk about your
did
kids.
the, National Park.
Let's see if there's 8 pages
They were
worth.
so gorgeous. I mean, Utah. It's
There's
unbelievable.
I had a connecting flight
Yeah,
from
right.
Salt
1,
Lake
2,
City, and it was.
3,
I remember
4.
flying in. It was so cool.
Yeah.
Everything's so flat.
When we went out there, we
She only is going to hit the
flew to
first
Salt
4
Lake
kids.
City, and then we had a bus tour.
She's going to have to
through all
split
the
them in half.
What does it ask me?
Oh,
And
that's
don't
so
do
cool.
1,
and
2,
who they are,
3,
and just
4,
the rock formation.
Yeah.
5, 6,
Unbelievable.
7, 8.
Uh-huh.
Well,
What
there's
time
some
of year
visual
was it?
prompts on those pages
It was.
too.
What does it ask about them? Just who they were?
What were their
I think it
first
was like
words?
September.
So it was kind of warm.
Well, this is
Yeah,
kind of
it was
a
nice.
joke.
Yeah.
It was a few years ago already, several years.
How are they? What do you like about your kids? Uh-oh. I'm not sure if you want her to fill that one in.
Oh, she can answer it. I know what she'd say. She'd say
This is kind of
the
so
fact
weird.
that they're all still together and
healthy,
get along.
pretty well.
Yep.
Well,
You could build your own trivia
Based off of
cards.
that.
Yeah,
for the
based
family,
on
based
mom's
off their
answers.
stats.
We could play it at Thanksgiving next week.
The Wilde trivia game?
Yeah. You can bring it to Florida, we'll
Personalized.
play Kahoot.
What did Grandma answer in the book?
Yeah.
Are there questions about Grandpa?
Yeah, there's like a
Grandma.
relationship section. I
Oh, is
think
that-
there's a whole.
What?
I didn't get to read every single page in there, but you know, I
Yeah,
Think
I
through a
started
good chunk of
glancing at
them.
it one day,
Yeah.
and I thought, really?
And you, I mean,
Take some thought.
Yeah.
but it doesn't have to be real detailed. It can be simple,
Yeah, you
3,
can be
4
pretty simple
word
with the
sentences
answers,
or answers to answer the question.
But you should do it because when you're not here anymore, it'd be cool to have that and go. Even now, we go. Wait, now Dad was in the army, right? Or
You
was
could also,
that kind of stuff
on your
where you
iPad
go,
or something, make videos and be like, "This is the question," and talk about your answer.
Grandma, what year were you born?
1932,
And your birthday is?
May 22nd.
May 22nd, 1934.
Two.
Two. Oh. So in 1934, there was some big things that happened, which obviously you were only 2
Yeah.
What happened in
during that
1934?
period. Well, what happened in the early 30s?
No idea. 29 was the
Depression.
depression.
Depression,
So it was before she was born.
wars. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, yeah, it was going on.
Wars in 36.
What happened in 34?
When was World War One?
Oh.
I don't know.
Nick, look it up quick.
World War I beginning.
Probably right about.
Was
I'm guessing about that time.
1914 to 1918.
So
Way before that.
42 was like 30s, wasn't it? To 42, I think it ended in 45.
well, so if she was born in 32, what was going on? World War II.
Quite the World War, but when did World War II start? Took us a long time
39
to
to
get
45.
There's a page
So do you remember that at all?
Not
What
that.
happened the year you were born?
Oh, we can Google that. We can fill that
Who
one.
won for Best Actor and Best Actress?
Because this being 2024 and her being born in 1932,
Yeah, you can look up stuff like that.
So, the year she was born. Gotcha. Okay.
You're not really gonna remember anything that
Right.
happened the year you were born. You're just gonna have to Google.
That would be interesting. Who won the Best Actor award?
Mom, you
What,
remember Polly the
1932?
prices
The
of local
Great
bread and milk
Depression,
back then?
Franklin D. Roosevelt.
what was the prices?
So,
Well, milk, you used to get it
Google.
from the farm. The
Yeah, we used
milkman
to-
would bring it around.
Amelia
Well, we take our
Earhart's
little
first
pail and we
flight.
go to the
Was it
farm and
32?
get her
Yeah.
milk.
wow.
But did you actually have to pay for those?
Kidnapping of
I'm
Charles
sure we did.
Lindbergh
10
and
cents
son.
or 20
Wow.
cents, something like that.
So you don't know what happened in 1932? Amelia
born.
Earhart, you were born. Amelia Earhart's first flight.
No,
Really?
no, no, no. Amelia Earhart's flight across the Atlantic Ocean.
Oh, okay.
First woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean.
Okay, and then what?
Kidnapping of Charles Lindbergh's son.
That's a big
I
deal.
kind of remember that.
Kingdom of Saudi
Or hearing
Arabia.
about it.
1932 Winter Olympics in Lake Placid, New York. Venice Film Festival. The Emu Award.
That's still
Emu War
Again?
in
The
1932.
Emu War?
Emu.
Don't even know. Never
You know what's
I was
crazy?
just a
The bird.
baby. I couldn't read.
We talk
all that
about it
stuff.
like it's so easy to remember, but if you think about it, in the 30s, there was no technology. News was probably a week, 2 weeks old
Right.
before
I know
you'd
when
even
you
hear
go
it.
to, I think it's some of the Hallmark stores, you can look at,
Those booklets.
they have booklets on the year you were born.
Yeah, it
This
tells
is
you the
all the
price of
stuff
milk.
that,
Yeah.
how prices and et cetera.
Price of
Somebody's
the
already
house.
put a lot of that together.
What was the average price of a house in 1932?
Are you looking it up?
No.
I remember when Pearl Harbor was bombed. I was about
You
9 years
do?
old.
Oh, that would be an influential.
1941?
My dad was. We lived up in New Richmond then,
Lionel Barrymore won.
and my
Best
dad
actor.
went to enlist. Offered to enlist to go to war, and when they found out his family, I mean, there were several of us back then. He said, "Your family needs you at home," so they wouldn't take him.
Wow.
Yeah.
The average home price in 1932 was $6,510. However, home prices had been declining since the stock market crash of 1929. And by 1932, a house that was worth $6,000 before the Depression was only worth about $3,900.
Oh, wow, 50%.
That's why I brought up 32, going, do you know what was major during that? It was the Depression.
Yeah.
And so, but as a child during that period,
you
you
kind of
missed
felt
all
it,
of that,
right.
really.
Right.
You wouldn't have known, even though there was rationing and, that kind of stuff.
It kind of explains
I
why.
remember Mother used to make us dresses and clothes out of flour sacks years ago when the farmers got or people got flour. They bought it in big bags, and they were floury bags and stuff.
Soft fabric.
Yeah, so she'd make little dresses out of the flour.
Oh, wow.
Because both Grandma and Grandpa's were on farms,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff.
Which was good, because then you could grow your own food and fish and
Yeah.
hunt.
So, what year was Gordon born?
26.
So, he grew up like in the Depression,
Yeah.
and
He
during
was
that
3
time,
when the stock market crashed.
it kind of explains why he was so saved everything.
Yeah,
Mhm.
very, very saving and
Frugal.
Frugal, yeah.
Who was the president in 1926?
wouldn't.
I think it was Herbert Hoover. Oh, Calvin Coolidge.
Captain Cook.
Maybe yours was Herbert Hoover. Because I was remember thinking Mom and Dad were both 2 letters the same, Herbert Hoover and Calvin Coolidge. But I thought they were swapped, so I bet yours is Herbert Hoover.
Polaroid photography was invented
No,
in
Franklin
1932.
D. Roosevelt.
Yeah.
Wow.
I remember
Really?
him.
And
Early
Skippy
on.
He
Peanut
was
Butter.
in a long time.
And what?
Skippy Peanut Butter.
Yeah, he was.
He was a president the longest because there was something that happened that he was more than 8 years.
Yeah.
He was more than 2 terms, and I don't know if it was the war or what it was. But
I remember him as president.
Who was the first president you ever voted for?
Oh, good grief.
Well, you'd
No,
have to look
18.
when
You would
turned
know.
18.
Did you vote at age 18?
I doubt
Probably.
it. I doubt it.
You doubt it?
Yeah.
could women vote then?
I don't know.
Yeah, I
I was
wonder.
gonna say,
That's why I'm
you
wondering.
graduated,
What year
but then
women
you start
vote?
working first, right?
Yeah.
And then went on your trip?
Where? To Rome?
Yeah,
Yeah, I was working then.
1920.
that's what I thought.
Yeah, so she could have voted.
You could
Probably.
have voted. So 18
Maybe
years from
1920.
1932 would have been 42, 52, 50, 50. 1950, you could have been voted. You could have voted. What were you doing in 1950? That's
I was
when you went to
working.
She's
Europe.
working.
I was
Because weren't you a
working.
senior when you went to Italy?
No, I was working already.
So you might have loaded.
What was your first job?
My first job,
Mhm.
working for my dad in the dime
Oh,
store.
yeah, at the dime store.
Doing what?
I worked in the candy case.
He owned a dime store where?
Oh, fun.
Schultz
Downtown
Brothers. Rolling here.
Really?
At
I never heard that story before.
He didn't own it. He was manager. It was Schultz Brothers at
Oh.
the time. It was called.
So when you go down the hill
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
Main Street,
Yeah.
and you always turn left to head out of town.
Yeah. Go
Right
right.
across the street,
On the
the
right.
second store in
Oh.
it's the big glass entrance.
So not very far from where J.C. Penney
No.
was.
Oh no, it was
No,
I
like
think
they-
Diedrich was
Matthew,
between them.
Diedrich's was between.
Okay.
J.C. Penney and Schultz Brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I heard a lot about
Because,
Dietrich's.
Well, when I worked for
dime
Dad, I worked in the candy case, and they have this little aisle of glass cases that had different kinds of candy in it. So we have to weigh out candy, and when people want a pound or a half a pound or something. Like
Did they have a fountain as well?
No,
Soda
no,
No fountain.
just selling candy, and then of course the rest of the stores
Anything
called
you
it a
needed.
dime store.
How old were you when you had that first job?
I probably was in high school. And I
Yeah.
worked part time.
14, 15.
I used to go downstairs when he'd get merchandise in and help him market and stuff.
So you were talking about Grant having a job earlier. You would have been 15, 16.
Yeah,
Yes.
14.
And so it was obviously encouraged
Yeah.
for teenagers to have jobs even then.
Well, Dad made sure we worked.
yeah,
Learned how
Knew
to
how to
work.
do something.
Did everybody work in the store? Or when did
I-
he leave the store?
Well, he was manager when I was born already.
Okay.
Because then
Wow, that's a
he
long
got
time.
transferred to Toma, and I started kindergarten, and then we moved to New Richmond, and I went through all my grade school up in New Richmond,
Okay.
and then at the time they owned the house here, and then the house up there was sold or for sale, and it happened the manager here was retiring or something, so Dad asked if they could move back
Okay.
here because they had the house,
Mhm.
So
So
your
then I
dad,
was starting high school when we moved back here.
Grandpa Wilford Kashabuski.
your dad was a business owner for a good.
He didn't own the store.
He didn't
managed
Oh.
own it,
it.
he was manager.
So he
Okay.
was the store
Of the
manager.
dealer.
What did I don't know much about Gordon's dad.
He
Edward.
was a carpenter.
Yeah,
right?
was he so?
They used to be farmers.
I wondered if there was
Yeah.
farming in
They had a
there.
horse.
Yeah,
Okay.
'cause,
They had a
Ray
horse.
owned the implement.
I knew that.
Yeah.
And how is Ray connected? That they're
Cousins.
Dad's.
cousins.
Dad's cousins. Yeah.
Okay.
So Ray and Dad were cousins, or Ray and Dad's parents were.
Ray and,
Brother and
Dad
sister.
were Ray and Dad were cousins.
Because Clara, so Dad's mother, Clara,
Yep.
and
Ray's.
They were Sismaskis.
they were. Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. They were related to Uncle Carl. and-
Mm-hmm.
But Ray and
That's
Gordon's dad and Ray's dad were brothers.
okay. Wait. Gordon's dad.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Dad was an only child. Gordon's dad.
And they were farmers, really.
Gordon's dad.
Yeah,
for a
yeah.
while.
Yeah,
Edwin.
because I knew Ray,
Yep.
obviously.
Yep.
And
I loved him,
Les
just-
was the other one.
Mhm.
I didn't know Les as
Les
much.
and Ray.
Yeah. Yeah.
Les-
Les wasn't around.
He
As
died
much.
early. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Ray and Viola used to come over a lot.
Yeah.
And
Well, just
Les
terrific
said-
people.
Les is-
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was Elaine, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Elaine
Les
was
and
a
Elaine.
very, very big
Yeah, she
woman.
was
Big
large.
person.
So
yeah.
was he, really. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was, yeah, too.
And then
Excuse me.
Ray owned the dealership
Long time.
long time. And what city was that in?
Markezan.
Yeah.
was that where they farmed too? Was Markezan area?
When they were farming, they lived near Waupun, I guess.
Hmm.
But then they moved back. I don't know what his dad, if he was retired then or when they bought that house in Markezan. But then Gordon got into carpenter work.
That's what I was going to ask you. How did he get into carpentry because it was very young.
Yeah, it was. Somebody needed help or something, and he just started doing it and liked it, so he just kept going with it.
Just decided to
So
make a.
Dad's mom died right after Mom and Dad got married.
Yeah.
So did Grandpa Wilde own that house in Marquezine already
Mm-hmm.
with that
Yeah,
with his
yeah,
mom, with
yeah.
Dad's mom?
Yeah.
So how long did they live in that house? A long time.
Long time.
Well, Dad was living
Okay.
there when you got married,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
And then
okay.
he started building this house.
Okay.
'Cause,
Or- No,
well,
they were
lived
in the you were in the pink
for a
house
while.
first.
Because after his mother died, we'd go over there and then we did some painting. We put new wallpaper on and stuff.
Mhm,
Fixed the house up a little bit
mhm.
inside. And I don't know if you kids remember when
I do.
Brownie had puppies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember.
I remember being over and stripping
I
wallpaper
do
with
too.
you, and
I remember
being at
that,
the
but I
house.
thought that was after Grandpa died, maybe.
No. That was
No?
while Grandpa was there.
Okay. I remember being at that house stripping wallpaper and
Yeah.
just being around that house.
Yeah.
It was
that-
So
Yeah,
did
playing, yeah.
you guys you don't remember ever? I mean, all the kids were born here,
I
not in the
remember
pink
being
house.
no, Cindy.
No.
Cindy was the first
We
one.
lived out by
at
my
this
mom
house.
and dad for 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember that house
And that's
because it
where
had
they
a
were.
turned staircase, and I don't know, we would slide down
On our
butts,
butts. Mhm.
and that was fun
What?
because you couldn't break it.
Grant, did you ever go to the? I don't think Grant ever was in the pink house.
No.
No.
I haven't been.
I remember the steep
never
stairs
went back
going
to the pink
upstairs.
Margie
You've
used
been
to
in the
slide
pink house?
down the stairs.
Yeah, I've been
on
in the
her
pink
butt.
house.
Grant,
Yes, I
eyes
have.
are closed.
No.
The pink
no,
house,
No,
No, you
Mine
couldn't have
don't.
been.
like 2 blocks away.
no, that was Grandma and Grandpa's house.
That was
Behind
Grandma
their
and
house
Grandpa's
was the
house.
pink house.
Ah,
We lived behind
Yeah,
them.
Doug
Wow,
used to own
nice.
Grandma and Grandpa's house.
I
Yeah.
thought you were always referring to
Yeah.
the pink house when
Their,
you're.
their backyards connected.
Yeah.
Why was I in this house?
Stop making that
Doug
face.
owned it for a while.
Doug owned it. For
But it was before Doug. It was when I was dating you.
Yeah, let's see. When did Grandma and Grandpa move out of that house? When did Grandma die?
Well, she was in the nursing home for a while.
For 7 years.
So,
Yeah.
6
where
years.
did Grandpa live while she was? He lived at that
He
house
lived
still,
in the
right?
house.
Mhm.
So is that why I went
And
there?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, probably.
That's what I
Probably
was
still
thinking.
around.
Yeah.
So what year? Grandma died in like 96.
Are you talking about Willie?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Grandpa died in 96, I think it was.
Grandpa.
No, he died.
I want to say, so we got married
We got
in
married
88.
and
I want to say that was 86 or
I
87.
remember we have a picture with Heather and Grandma and me and Mom.
Yes, in the nursing home.
With great grandma. Yep.
Mhm.
Well, it would have been Heather's great grandma. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she was in a wheelchair.
Yeah. She had a stroke.
She didn't live that much
Heather
longer
was
after
born in
that picture.
99.
She was in the nursing home for 7 years.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
how
Well,
what
she must
you
have died after 99 then.
Yeah, she did.
Because Heather was born in 99.
Yes.
99.
So I think it was that year that she died. And I remember thinking going, "Wow, I'm glad I got that picture."
But I thought I was pregnant with one of these two at one of their funerals. And Grandma died before Grandpa.
No, Grandpa
No.
died first.
Oh,
Grandma
okay.
was
It
in
must have
the
been
nursing
Grandpa
home for.
that I was pregnant.
I want to say that Willie was passed
Okay.
when we visited in 99.
Yeah, he,
I
died.
think
He
he
wasn't
died in
in the
90.
nursing home very long.
Okay.
I remember talking to him
Remember
here
all
and
those dates.
Yeah.
here as well, and
Yeah.
he was sneaking a cookie or a candy, and
Yeah.
he goes, "Don't tell anyone. I'm gonna get in trouble."
I remember he used to bring over those little pretzel buds. Remember those? He'd
Yeah.
bring those. Oh my gosh, that was always so cool when Grandpa
Or
would
Grandpa
come.
Wilde always had the peppermints,
Yeah.
peppermint candies, the
Yeah.
pink mints,
Yeah.
The striped, pink striped.
And Grandpa Wilde hung around here a while.
or just the plain pink ones.
Did
would
he live
always
here?
have.
for a
No,
little bit at all?
but he always came down to help Dad.
From Marquezine?
Yeah.
Mhm.
How
Because
far
I
is
remember
that?
he seemed pretty elderly. How far is that?
Well, he was only 73 when he died.
5 Brippin.
Oh, okay.
Go
Yeah,
over to
because he
Green
was
Lake and-
always working in the basement. He'd
Yeah.
have
Like
lunch
30
with
minutes or
us.
20
Yeah.
minutes?
No, not even.
So we were talking about what your favorite memories were when you were a kid. What were your favorite memories when you were a kid? Because I truly don't get an opportunity to talk to too many people that grew up in the 30s.
Right?
What was it like?
The one thing I remember most is going out, staying with Grandma and Grandpa out on the farm, which is out
Your grandma and grandpa?
on Forest Ridge Road back there. They had a farm. Actually, I was born on that farm. And I was probably 10 then. I stayed there for a while, and I went with Grandpa with a horse and buggy with the milk cans
Wow.
to take them to the creamery.
Yep.
After you milk the cows.
Yeah.
Horse and buggy.
Do you remember
So
how
that
many
would've
cows they had?
He didn't have a lot.
Because when you fill up those
Probably 3 or
buckets, they're not light.
No, they were
I-
about this tall.
Yeah, milk cans
Yeah.
with the big
Yeah.
round top on them, and
Yeah.
So that would have been your
My
mom's or dad's parents?
mom's parents.
Mom's parents, okay,
Seaman.
okay.
that's
I
pretty
remember
crazy.
Grandma Seaman, I don't remember Grandpa Seaman.
Isn't it weird for you to see all the transition in the world from going when you were a little girl on rides to the creamery,
In a horse and buggy.
carrying
What amazes me most right now is all these highways going all over the place. I mean,
Highways and
back
byways.
when I was in grade school, we used to get these little little news books. And one time I remember they had this picture of all these highways going, and I was only 8, 9, 10, and I thought, wow, and now look at, I see all this building going on, with highways.
Grant, do you remember who the president was that passed the law for federal highway systems? And it was like what he was known for. Do you remember who that was? It wasn't like, it was relatively a short time, like 50 years ago or something.
I mean, not Clinton.
No.
Okay.
Wasn't it?
No.
No, it was before
It was
him.
Before that, yeah.
I just don't
Well, when
remember.
were cars invented?
Was that in the 50s? When was JFK president?
Well, when that happened,
He got assassinated in 60.
that's when our
60 to 63.
country became connected. It was the
President.
railroad.
What's the question?
Come on, Grandma.
What president?
The highway system.
Yeah, when was the highway system formed? And it's going to tell you the president. That's what she's talking about.
Yeah.
But, people imagined that
Dwight
already
D.
when I was.
That was during my
Wow,
1960s. See,
1956.
I said,
Really? He was
it-
famous for the highway?
yeah, and it was
I
relative.
was already out of high school by then,
Yeah,
1950.
1956. So
Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956.
You would have been my age.
Mm-hmm.
that's why I remember it, because it was he brings up who was president when you were born.
YouTube videos about presidents and what they did and what they died from and
Really?
who their spouse was and just it's kind of cool, interesting.
And you
fascinating.
know what? Well, many people in our country were dying during that era because of bad food.
Mhm.
Like they couldn't get good food because
Meat would spoil.
it was
And
there
then
was
they would put sauces on them
Oh,
to
really?
try to cover
Oh,
the stench. I know, and then they would eat it. Yeah.
you know what I learned last night, that people were cooking in iron, and it
People
went
still cook in iron, though.
well.
Yeah, but they're treated iron probably.
Maybe it was I can't remember. It was one of the copper
like
or
that
iron.
skillets now. They like,
Yeah.
Yeah. But then it was plumbing, actually. And then people started cooking in it because it gave meat a sweet taste. Because back in the day, they didn't like the taste of meat that had sat around for a couple of days.
I wouldn't either.
yeah. I
And
know.
then it was found, it was lead. That's what it was,
Oh.
lead.
Lead poisoning.
Yep. And that led to the whole movement of lead poisoning.
Wow.
And people were poisoning themselves. They didn't really know it. That was during that same period. Interesting.
Yeah.
So you got to see, like, how did you get to see the transition from horse and buggy to cars and things like that?
Yeah, because then Dad had this Ford. Actually, I think I was in grade school up north then, because it was a long ride from up there to come back to Grandma and Grandpa's. And in the winter, I mean, they didn't have heat in the cars, and he put us kids in the back seat, and they had what they called a horse blanket. If you ever saw those horse blankets,
Yeah.
real heavy, cover us up, to keep us warm.
Wow.
So you got like a Ford Model T or
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah.
And when was that? What year was that?
Well, that's when I was in grade school yet, so probably
Yeah.
40s.
in the
40-ish.
early 40s, yeah.
Wow.
30s, late 30s.
I remember Dad saying he would warm up a frying pan or some sort of pan somehow, and he would like put it under his bed covers before
Yeah.
he jumped into bed
Yeah, probably.
when he was a kid.
Yeah, he always slept upstairs at the house there.
So that was even more cold probably
Yeah,
up
but
there.
it would keep it warm enough just to fall asleep,
Yeah.
and then
At least your body would then heat up the
and
blanket
then
a
you'd have
little.
blankets over you. So
Yeah, no kidding.
crazy.
Yeah.
But I think it's pretty
Years.
amazing to go from horse and buggy to,
cars.
I mean, that's just crazy.
When I learned to drive, I learned on the stick shift. The
Yeah,
clutch and all
yeah,
that.
because
That was interesting.
That's all there was, right?
Yeah.
That was how cars were made. For when did autos come out? Automatics. Probably.
I don't know, 50s?
I've
Late
never driven a
50s
manual
probably.
car.
I remember
I taught her on a manual car.
Dad would try to teach me.
I learned how to drive stick on a Toro Workman.
I always hated when Dad was teaching me to drive, he'd take me on a hill
Yeah,
and stop
yeah,
at stop sign.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then you're
And
like,
then you gotta try to
"Oh, shoot.
Let the clutch out while you're letting
Yeah.
the brake out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't back up
Yeah.
until you want to go forward.
Yeah.
Now the newest technology, literally, you can take your foot off the brake and it will hold it
That's what we're
there.
gonna do it again.
I saw
Jim, you want to charge your arm so we can do it before we leave?
individual ones with grandma, like you
Yep.
two or
Yep.
3 kids with grandma.
Did you say charge? You
Charge his arm. He's got a fake arm. We have to charge it to keep it moving.
No, his pump.
His sensor.
It's the CGM and
For your
it
diabetes?
lasts a
Oh.
week.
To charge it once.
It
once a
stays
week, and
charged
Monday's the
for a
day.
week.
But
Today's
it takes
the
about 30 minutes
changeover
to
day.
charge.
Did you have
She
something?
talked about it.
I
We didn't
did.
do it.
She didn't.
Grant, you want to
pull
go
one
pick a
out.
bag?